Hi, you're listening to Status Stranded Inc. Allie by David Halem. I hope you enjoy. We had just heard about the end of the world moments ago, and now rain is holding me close. I was still shaking like a leaf in the wind, but his strong hold made me feel steady. This is one of the very few times that I felt gentle, when I was with Rain. I didn't care about the parts that I was exposed because it's him. I don't know how, but my violent nature and his anxious mind are at peace when we're with each other like this. What a strange peace in spite of everything. But then everything. I took a few deep breaths. Maybe for once in the past 2 years I can close my eyes and not be thrown into a nightmare. How far? How far what? How far have we come? Is this how you remember it? I don't know. Dad? Dad, is that you? I could see his soft brown eyes sweetly looking at me. Me, his daughter. I could see his warm smile, smiling sweetly at me. Me, his daughter. He has red hair like mine, but not as vibrant. I stepped forward, and he also stepped forward. You and Rain are the only people I know how to trust. The only people that I can turn to in this pandemonium. In this purgatory, in this world. Earth, didn't the world end? There have been times before where my world has ended, but now the world has ended. Where are we now? Desert. The one with one letter S. S. S is for sepulcher. Sepulcher, where people I love reside. No graves because they're all alive here in their death. Alive in the cosmic graveyard. Cold, because the fire of life no longer surges and burns in their veins. Are there seeds? No, not here. There are seeds elsewhere. Who told me that? Where are the seeds? Oh, did you say fire? I believe you meant this fire. Dad dropped to the ground, dead and ablaze with corrosive flames that relentlessly ate away his flesh, leaving only his bones to be darkened by the ashes. Dad! Daddy! Where are the seeds? Rain and I have the seeds, but our wrists are bleeding. It hurts. Dad is on fire, and that hurts my heart and taints my mind. Rain, you are now the only one I trust with me. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Rain. It wasn't Rain. His mother grabbed me by the throat and squeezed until my air passage caved in. Where are the seeds? His mother threw me into the ground, and the impact stunned every inch of my flesh, and contact with the ground made me bleed, my glistening blood out onto the floor. The searing pain in my throat. You're now the only one I trust with me. I don't trust myself with myself. Dad said his last goodbye and said that this was for me. Dad! Daddy! No! 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 As the fire rose, there was only one person that I could trust with me. His mother kicked me while I was down, and her foot went through my flesh, dissolving skin and muscle, bursting forth the flow of blood that foamed and burned as it left my downed body. I couldn't scream. Dad! Daddy! But he was already on fire, and he couldn't help me. Rain! Rain, no! A bullet destroyed his face, but he was still alive and gasping for air. My heart pounded as I could feel my pulse in my ears. I felt shaken in a different way. Knowing how you are, if it's that hard, you must be very troubled, Rain said. I opened my eyes and looked around. Slanie and Rain were talking. I was shaken again by the nightmares. Rain and Slanie were talking for a little bit before I caught up with the conversation. But now there's no Earth to come home to. I winced and felt so stressed after Slanie said that. Sorry, Allie, everyone is hurt by this, and it feels like walking on nails to say anything. I made a short, weak noise in response to that. She understands, Rain said. But it still hurts. Just because I understand doesn't mean it doesn't hurt any less. If anything, understanding in this sense makes the hurt even more complicated. I start to sit up. The coat that I was wearing over my undergarments was starting to open up, but I didn't care so much. Rain was the one holding me. Have you been doing anything in the meantime to distract you? I asked, knowing very little of the conversation, just a vague idea. Slanie smirked. I had the kids follow me and I told them stories. I wish I could have slept like you. Sleep? I don't know how to describe that as of recently. A blessed curse? A curse blessing? I shook my head. It was a nightmare. Oh, I'm sorry. I was in a short drift, but then I shook myself out of it. Slanie said that she would tell stories? I guess I could have seen something like that in her before. Could you tell of us one of the stories? I asked. Slanie told the story. I had hoped that it would help align my mind better, but my thoughts were so interwoven that even beyond the story I was in a strange, compliant trance of thought. Something about butterflies and hornets. There were more to it than just that, but that's what I got from it all. With every step I took, from changing clothes to pacing the room, leaving the ship, and even the first steps onto Vertai, my heart pounded rapidly like a scared hummingbird. I don't want to try to remember any of it, but I know that I have to think back about the years past to make any efforts to make peace. Things are so different now, not just in landscape, but in mindscape. I think Rain still loves me, but what about me? Have I gone from love to routine? Is it just something I say now before we go to sleep? There's a small feeling of resentment to a degree, but I always willingly find myself falling back into his arms because I'm not close enough to anyone else like that. I'm afraid for him because of myself, my violent self and his anxious mind. I wouldn't ever do anything to him, but just the fear that things in the past could have happened differently, and differently more than it is now, would be unbearable. I felt Rain's arm around me. It's been about an hour since I asked you what was on your mind, he said calmly. I know you're not okay, but talk to me about it. I felt very out of place. I was on Vertai with Rain. Where was everyone else? Rain stopped our stride. One thing at a time. One thing at a time. I let that ring in my mind a few times. One thing at a time. The sun is blue. We're surrounded by oceans that have mountainous landmasses a mile or two apart from each other. We're on a side of a mountain. There are streets here. These streets will go into the mountain about 100 feet or so before they rise directly upward to the level above them. There are trees. The trees have red leaves, but as cool as the air is, it isn't cold enough for a fall season to make the leaves change color. A wave of the ocean splashed against a mountain with so much force that the water from the wave went up half a mile into the air. It's so beautiful. I rested my head on Rain's shoulder and we stopped walking. I let out a sad sigh. I wish I could have seen Earth be this beautiful. I felt Rain nod. Yeah. A warm feeling of sadness swelled in my heart, matched with pity and allied with downcastness. Rain held me a little closer to his side as we walked to a sidewalk outlook where we could see the ocean and mountains. Whenever you're ready, girl. I sighed and leaned closer to him. I don't know where to start. I closed my eyes and I was blessed to not be greeted with nightmares again. I feel lackluster about us. After Dad was killed, I had no one else I was so comfortable with opening up to, being exposed to, being present with, except for you. And that's good that I can be with you to be comforted, but oh God, I don't like saying any of this. Is that still weighing on you? Rain asked. I nodded. That's only a part of it. The other part, I feel placid about us. I feel like everything that I do with you is routine. I'm doubting your feelings, and Rain turned to me where we were facing each other. His hands were on my cheeks, a deep, compassionate look in his eyes, and he leaned to where our foreheads were resting on each other. Do you really love me? I love you, Allie. Even when I freak out, get reserved, shut down mentally, and when I fall short. Rain was unwavering when he said it again. I love you, Allie. I let out a breathy scoff. I don't know what's my fault. I don't know if I went too far and that's what caused us to lose Grace's family. I don't know if I didn't do enough and that's... I sniffled, and Rain kissed my forehead before pulling me into a dear, close embrace. I was shaking with small sobs pulsing through my chest. Again, he said, "I love you, Allie." There was a hopeful tone through my sobbing. "Do you?" I could feel Ray nod, regardless. I put my head on his neck between his ear and his shoulder. "I want to give you the same love." Rain let out a short, fast, emotional sigh. "Then do what you need to do to get there." "Do what I need to do to get there." "Yeah." "Was I ever there?" Rain nodded. I sighed. Everything in the past few years has done so much that I forgot how to love my fiancé. "A reminder," I said softly. He nodded. "Would you like me to help remind you?" I nodded with my face buried in his chest. "I want something that I see all the time, something that dominates my perception." Rain nodded, like how we would write the answers to school tests on our hands to have the answer right in front of us. "What are you thinking?" Rain asked. I shrugged. "Just right on my hand?" I couldn't see it, but I could feel the energy of Rain's smile. "Let me help complete this thought." "Okay. We can stand on our own and be self-sufficient in the way we know how, but we both know that together is when we thrive," he explained. "Yeah?" "Both of us write on our hands. Both hands have a love poem that could stand alone on their own, and they also complete each other when put together." I think I have an idea of what he's talking about. "I don't think pen will last." Rain let out a sigh, but it was a satisfied sigh. "Haven't you said that you've always wanted a tattoo?" I moved myself to where both Rain and I were standing next to each other, him at my left and me at his right. I looked at my left hand, my good hand, and put it in front of Rain and I. Rain then took his right hand, his good hand, and put it next to mine in front of us. Our hands were next to each other in a way where our arms crossed each other at our forearms. My hands were closer to him and his closer to me, palms facing us. I smiled a small smile. "I like it." Rain and I looked for a map on the sidewalk for this mountain. After a few minutes, we eventually found one, and luckily for us, it must have been using Soto technology because we could read it just fine. The map showed some distance away that there was a body art shop where you could get tattoos, piercings, and other bodily accessories that don't all pertain to humans. It took us some time to walk there, but we got there in about an hour. With the thought of time, I had noticed that there were no clocks of any kind in space. Was this what Arth Gallo meant by he doesn't have any hours to give? Was it because there are so many different cultures with different lengths for different passages of time? That must be it, and that means there are far too many ways to tell the time than what we're familiar with. We reached the body art shop. The shop was embedded inside part of the mountain and looked like it took up as much space as a large house, larger than the base we left behind on Earth. Just don't think about Earth right now. There were no doors. You just walked into the open entry. Inside, the walls were covered in massive murals. A few of the murals on the wall stood out to me. One of the murals was what looked like Vartai, but there was a hole inside the planet that was filled with swirling colors. And the other part of the mural that stood out to me was the large massive dots that I assumed to be planets, within the numerous dots that were bright patches like stars. It was all too close to be a solar system, but with how close everything was compared to the distances to everything else, it had to be intentional. I could ask about that when we're inside. Before we got to the shop, Rain and I were going back and forth about the poem for our hands, and we had finally settled on what we wanted the words on our hands to say. There was a large individual at the front desk. I couldn't figure out the gender of this individual just by the sight, but they had to be at least 8 feet tall, and they wore a pearly white tank top, but I couldn't see their legs because of the desk. This individual was large, but didn't appear to be obese large. No fat rolls or stretch marks, more like a pink-colored fat man balloon animal covered in emerald green tattoos and almost pincushion piercings. They had a small mouth, or from here the mouth looked small. Small ears, a larger nose, 2 eyes that were almost on the corner of its forehead, and no hair of any kind. It spoke, and with small delay a piece of Soto technology translated what the alien said to a language that Rain and I understood. Both of you? And even hearing its voice I couldn't tell the gender. There's another strange thought. Humans have only 2 genders. Is it possible that different alien races have more than 2? Or some of them may only have 1 gender that serves all purposes? Rain and I nodded. The alien gestured with one of its limbs to its left. Find an empty seat. Rain and I walked through the seats, some of the seats holding varying sizes of fleshy or scale-covered aliens of different colors. We found an empty seat in seconds, and we both sat down together onto it. Rain pulled out a little piece of paper from the desk that was next to the seat and wrote down what we had decided on. He wrote the words in as close to a font like those of ancient typewriters. I always loved the look of the words from those old machines. In the stark contrast to the receptionist, the alien that approached us was no taller than my knee height. He was essentially a miniature adult human with human proportions, but only 1.5 feet tall. He had black hair that he had greased back. He also wore little glasses with especially thin wiring, and he was covered from head to toe in little tattoos. He was wearing a red tank top and white shorts. His voice was like a buzz. "Alright, you twos know what yous want?" he asked us. Rain gave the little man the card, making sure it was the right side up for the little man. The paper may as well have been as big as a newspaper for the little guy. Rain explained to the little man what we wanted with the tattoos, and he nodded. "Ah, I sees." He rocked a little as he chuckled to himself. Will be fast." I was first to get the tattoo. I held Rain's hand tight as my left palm was dealing with the sharp pain of the needle. I gritted my teeth. Trying to think of something other than the pain, I suppose it was a blessing to have such a little man do our very detailed tattoos. My tattoo was finished as fast as the little man said it would be. Around the words there were golden-colored stress patches. On Rain they would be red because he has red blood, but for some reason my blood is gold. For me, the pain was gone as fast as it came. Then it was Rain's turn for his part of the tattoo. All Rain did was take deep breaths, and he was fine. We still held hands, but he wasn't squeezing as tight as I was when I was getting my tattoo. Both tattoos were finished. Rain was still breathing heavily, and we put our hands together like we had before. Together they read, "Forever in due time, I will be counting the stars in the sky, the stars in the sky. May all burn away, but I will take time to say I love you, to say these perfect words. How these perfect words are, I love you." They complement each other when they're together. By itself, mine read, "Forever in due time, the stars in the sky may all burn away to say I love you. How these perfect words are." Rain's tattoo by itself read, "I will be counting the stars in the sky, but I will take time to say these perfect words. I love you." These work so well for us, too. Mine fits me in all of my violence that I strive to control, and in a special way gives me hope. Rain's fits his thinking as well, because of course he would be counting stars if he felt like it was important. But then when he wants to or needs to, he will make time for me. I smile brighter. Yeah, he really does love me. "Anything else I can do for yous?" the little man asked. I turned to the mural wall. "What's that cluster of dots on that part of the wall?" "Oh, you two's news around here's isn't yous." The man paused for not even half a second. "That's got many names. Mold, Tequil, Acid, Mala, Haibu, whatever's yous wants to call it," he explained. "That effer's one of the deadliest things in this parts of the universe." "Oh, that's interesting," I said in response. "Yeah, as every culture's that has some fascinations with deaths and arts." I nodded as Rain and I stood up. "You twos pays at the counters," the little man instructed. As we walked over to the counter, Rain took out a device that was a disc with a hole in the middle of it. This disc was completely silver metallic and shined even when no light was hitting it, and it was big enough to fit on the palm of your hand. The large alien looked up at us, and Rain held the device in the air. The alien held up a black cube with white edges in the vicinity of Rain's disc. The white edges lit up a little brighter for a second, and a short pink bolt of electricity shot from the disc into the cube. "What was that?" I asked Rain as we walked out of the shop. Rain looked at the disc and a number appeared on it. "Looks like that cost us only 30 pecunia. That must be the money that the Soto gave us. How much do we have?" Rain rubbed part of the disc with his thumb. "Our Soto friends said that we have enough on here to buy another ship if we wanted to," he explained. "So, about 200,000, he said with a whisper to his voice. I nodded and Rain's radio made a tone. Rain put the disc back in a pocket and took out his radio. "Is leisure time over already?" Rain asked. "I am afraid your leisure is indeed cut short, sweet leadership." The voice on the other side didn't sound too happy. A notorious armada, Brecton fleet of Section B-22.8, have made an announcement concerning their arrival to Vertai. What's the announcement? Should no one intercede, Brecton seizes Vertai.
Hi, this is David Halem, and you just finished listening to chapter Allie, Inc. from my story Status Stranded. I hope you enjoyed. See you next week.